Well, good evening, guys. It's so exciting, and I'm so honored to be uh, the instructor to give you the first course. And so today's topic is mainly about the Chinese language. And a brief introduction about myself. My name is Bai Xue. And as you can see, Bai is my surname. So according to the Chinese tradition, you can call me Bai Lao Shi. And I'm working right here at Guilin Tourism University. And also a member of the School of Culture and Communication. And so much about myself. And today, so when we talk about the language, we usually study it or analyze it from three perspectives. That is the phonetics, the writing, the sound system. Second is the vocabulary, and finally the grammar. The Chinese is so special because the writing system is just so different from the rest of the world. That's why we will talk about it as well. And I put it in the last part, but it's actually maybe the most important part of today's lecture. And so let's get started. But before we talk about from these four perspectives, I'd like to offer you or provide you a more like microscopic view, because I like to put China or the Chinese language on the map. Here's a map. Oh, maybe before I like to say something about language family. So it's actually a borrowing from the biology term or biology methodology. So the scholars or linguists, when they study the languages, they find the relations between languages. And most of the reason is because of the geographical location. The most famous language family is the Indo-European languages. It's mainly the European languages. And here is an example. So, and it can be divided into two branches. The first two columns is the Germanic language branch. And the third, fourth, and fifth columns are the Romance language. And you can clearly see the similarities between them. The words, the sound. For example, in English, wind is wind, of course, and in German it is wind, and in French it is vent, and Italian viento, and Spanish viento. So they have very close. They're actually related. So they're just like family members. That's why they're divided into the Indo-European languages, and they can finally divided into different branches, sub-branches, groups, etc. So, so what is Chinese? The language belongs to this Sino-Tibetan language family, and those in red belong to this language family. And so, according to linguists, or according to the recent research, the Sino-Tibetan language family split into Proto-Chinese and Proto-Tibetan, Tibeto-Burman around 4000 BC. So it has a really, really long history. And then let's see why it is. They all belong to Sino-Tibetan language because they have some similarities, of course. They are from the same origin. So they share some, first they have some cognates. It's just like the graph I showed you before, the Indo-European languages, like words, like three in English and hua in French. And it can subdivide it into different languages and maybe dialects. And second is they have very relatively simple syllabic structure, and I'll show you later. And then they're tonal. Most of the languages are tonal. That means they have tone, and tone matters a lot. It's like the consonants and vowels. And it plays a very important role in the language, so to differentiate meanings. And so many Sino-Tibetan languages are tonal. And the number of the tones varies from language to language. So there are 2 tones in Tibetan, 3 tones in Burmese, 4 in Mandarin Chinese, and up to 9 in Cantonese. This is one of the biggest features of these Sino-Tibetan languages. But not only in the Sino-Tibetan language family have language are tonal, there are also other tonal languages. For example, you can see here in Africa and in Americas, maybe the Aborigines living there, And in southeastern China, besides Sino-Tibetan, we have Hmong-Mien, that is in Chinese, that is Miao Mian, and Thai Kadai. So languages spoken in, like mostly spoken in southeastern China are tonal. And I heard that the Thai language has 5 tones, and Vietnamese also have tones. So this is a tonal feature. And later I will talk more about it. And the second fact is that the Chinese language is very complicated. So when we talk about Chinese language, it also includes lots of dialects. And you can see it can be divided into Mandarin and Southern dialects. And actually this Mandarin is not very accurate. I think we should say Northern dialects. It's just because they're closer to standard language. That's why this on this map is just called Mandarin. So Mandarin can also be divided into Northern, Eastern, and Southwestern. For example, I'm from Sichuan province. This is my hometown. So I speak Southwestern Mandarin, but with an accent, of course. And actually, this is very interesting. No Chinese is born to speak the standard language. We're trained to speak a standard language that is called 普通话 in Chinese. And here we can see in the south, most in the eastern part of China, southeastern part of China, there are lots of dialects, and they are not intelligible to me. So that's why many Westerners believe they are not dialects. Actually, they are different languages. So we have Wu, meaning spoken in southern part of Jiangsu, most part of Zhejiang and Shanghai, of course. And we have Gan, spoken in Jiangxi province. We have Hakka in Taiwan and Fujian. Then Jiang in Hunan province. Sorry, Ming in Fujian and in Taiwan. And finally, we have Yue, that is Cantonese, spoken in Guangdong, both Guangdong and Guangxi. Here I am in Guangxi province, just to give you some very basic information about the Chinese language. So from now on, when I'm talking about Chinese is actually Mandarin. It's quite different from the rest of the dialects. So I mean the standard language. So let's come to the first chapter about the sound system and tones. So this is a very common greeting, that is hello, 你好 in Chinese is hello. And you can see here, let's take 你 for example, and we can see syllable is composed of, a Chinese syllable is composed of this one consonant is called initial. So the beginning consonant is called initial in Chinese. And this one is called, the rest part is called a final. Well, in Chinese it's called 韵母. And then we have this, just like I said, tone plays a very important part in Sino-Tibetan language family. And so that's Chinese. So this is the tone. So syllable is composed of these 3 parts. So that forms 你, and that means you, and 好 means good. So together, in Chinese, it means hello. And let's say some more examples, like 中国, that is China. And you can see here, the beginning consonant is the initial, and these are together, they form the final. And see, here in the second character, this is the initial, and then these 2 are final. And this is the tone mark. How to say 本来? In Chinese, it's 文来. So also can see this is, we can find initials here and finals here. And of course, the tone is a must. And actually to conclude, we have a formula. A Chinese syllable is composed of a consonant and initials, finals, and a tone. And this part, C means consonant, that is initial. But you can see the finals can be very complicated, or a little more complicated than the initials. Initials usually it is a consonant, and brackets means it can be omitted. So the most important part in a Chinese syllable is a vowel and a tone. So these are they compose the finals. So this is a very basic construction of Chinese syllable. For example, to change in Chinese, we say 变, and we can find this is the initial because it's a starting consonant, and the final are these three, I-A-N, and together with a tone, their finals. And so we say the vowel is the most important, and vowel with a tone is most important. I take an example. For example, E in Chinese, we only have a vowel, and the tone is the first tone. That means close. And there are more examples like yu, that is fish in Chinese, and yu, the tone. When you change the tone into the first tone, it means rain. And speaking of the tones, let's have a look. Just inform you with the most basic knowledge about tones. We have 4 tones in Mandarin. The first tone is a very high tone, high and flat. It is like and the second tone is starting from here, and it's a rising tone, and the third tone, first you fall a little and then rise, so that is and finally we have the fourth tone, that is a falling tone, And just as I said, tone is very important. So we can see, here's an example. There are 4 pictures representing different meanings. And the first one, here we can see this is a mom holding a baby. So when you speak in the first tone, these syllables together, it means mom. And in Chinese, it's called ma. And then this is ma, him. And when you change into the third tone, become ma, that means horse. And finally, to scold, it's ma. So it's very amazing. You just change the tone, nothing changes, but you get different meanings and different words. And speaking of this, I have very amazing, wonderful example for you. Here's a passage composed by this distinguished linguist. He was American Chinese, and he composed this passage just to. This is a very extreme example, just to let us know how important the tone is in Chinese. And you can see here the pinyin is given, and so you can see the only difference between these characters is the tone. But what is amazing is that it makes sense. So I'll read for you and I'll translate. The title is 诗事时诗史. Well, this is a painful mouth and for the ear. 诗事 means a guy whose first name is Shi, so Mr. Shi, and Shi means to eat, and Shi means lion, and Shi here means a story. So it's mainly a story about a guy whose surname is Shi, and about him eating lions, his habit of eating lions. So it all makes sense. Now I'll read you. 时事诗事诗事. So the Stone Grotto poet, whose surname is Shi, is very fond of eating lions, Shi Shi, and he made a vow he will eat 10 lions. So 是时时诗 and 诗事事诗事时时事事. So he went to the market very often and to see the lions. Next, 时时 at 10 o'clock, 是时诗事事. So it happened that there were 10 lions went to the market as well. 事时 at this time, 是诗事事事. It also happened that the Mr. Shi was also at the market. 诗事是事时诗. So Mr. Shi watched these 10 lions. 是史事, and just relying on the momentum of the arrows. and making these 10 lines die. So so Mr. Shi gathered these 10 lines bodies. He went back to his stone grotto. So because the stone grotto was wet, so he made his servant mop, wipe the stone grotto. And after the stone grotto being wiped, so he started to try to eat these 10 lions bodies. Oh, this is so painful for me to read. And but this is a very extreme example, but just show you how important the tones can be in the Chinese language. And so let's continue. When he's eating, and started to find, and now he realized that these 10 lions bodies were actually 10 stone lions bodies. So, so now you try to explain this matter. Well, this is very genius work of Mr. Zhao. And so the tone very important. Pay attention to that. Maybe there's no, your native language is not tonal. So yeah, later you will put emphasis on this. Let's come to the second part about vocabulary. So here's a calendar in English. So the English vocabulary is unbelievably large. And because from January to December, they have different words for that. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, and from every, also from weekdays to weekends, it's also different. Like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you have to memorize a lot of words. But in China, in the Chinese language, all you have to do is to memorize how to count from 1 to 10. So here's an example. 1 is 1, and then we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So January is 1月, and February is 2月, March is 3月, April is 4月, May 5月, June and July 6月, 7月, 8月, 9月, 10月. So very simple. And how to say 11? That is 11. So 11. And then 12, 13, 14, 15. So it's very simple. And about when you say, so Sunday is 星期日, and星期天, Monday is 星期一, 星期二, 星期三. It's just counting numbers, very different, very simple, much simpler than the English language or vocabulary. And speaking of this, it came to my mind about a famous or very interesting news happened years ago. So what are these animals? There are 12 animals. This is a Chinese zodiac, from rat to pig. So the Chinese lunar calendar assigned an animal to each year according to a 12-year cycle. So this year is a year of tiger. Now, let me ask you a question. How about in 2015? Which year is that? So today, this year is the year of tiger, and next year will be the year of rabbit. Now, how about in 2015? We can come back. So this is this year, and then in 2021, in 2020, and 2019, 2018, 17, 16, and 15. Yeah. So in 2015, it was the year of goat. But here's a question. Is it the year of goat, or it was a year of sheep, or it was a year of lamb? Actually, the Western media was very confused about about translating the name of the year. So here's the headlines of one of the news. Some reporters said Is it the year of sheep, goat, or ram? They are so confused. But in Chinese, we don't have this confusion because we use this one single character. It is just yang. And no matter it's sheep, goat, or ram, we use, this is a basic word root, because if it's a sheep, we say shan yang. So this is like it can include all kinds of ruminant horned animals. And you can see this is the very ancient form of this character yang. Maybe from Franz horn, you can judge it is ram, but maybe it's not necessary because all those decorations during the Chinese New Year, you can find all kinds of yang, like these, and also like these. So you can find both sheep, goat, and ram. So someone suggested maybe it's the Lunar New Year of any ruminant horned animal. This is ridiculous. So let me just suggest, maybe we can just call it the year of yang, and that will make this question much simpler. And so most Chinese words are made of one or two morphemes. The most common morphological devices in Chinese is use of compounds and derivational forms. And Chinese tends not to borrow words from other languages. Instead, it uses native elements to create words from expressing new concepts. For example, telephone is 电话, literally electricity plus speech. 电 means electricity, 话 means speech. So we have telephone. And airplane is 飞机, 飞 means fly, 机 is any kind of machine. So together, it's flying machine, that is airplane. And radio is 收音机, 收 means to receive, 音 means sound, and 机 is like I mentioned, a machine, all kinds of machines. So 收音机, we translate it into radio, we translate it into 收音机. We don't need any like transliteration. But it's not, I'm not saying that there are no transliteration at all, but very few. Just to give you some example, like coffee. In Chinese, we say 咖啡, sofa. In Chinese, we say 沙发. Yeah, but that's very limited. And most of the way we borrow the foreign words is to use the old materials, use the Chinese materials to form new words, the compound words. It's very different from the Japanese. So these are the loan words from English, and these are the hiragana in Japanese. So they are all loan words, and I'll read for you and find the closeness of the sound. So business in Japanese, business. So very similar to business. And supermarket is スーパーマーケット. And beer is ビール. Camera, camera. Game, tennis. Butter, bata. Elevator, elevator. So they just mimic the sound. But in Chinese, these words were all translated, except beer, they're all translated with our own material, compound. So like business, we translate it into 商业. So 商 can also be used to form other concepts. Like 商, actually, this character has a meaning, has a connotation of business, commerce, and etc. So we're dealing, so 商人 means businessman, and 商店 means shop. And supermarket in Chinese is 超市. Oh, this is pretty much like how the English form their new words. Like 超 means super, 市 means market, so that's supermarket. It's very pretty much the same. 超人 Superman, 超越 transcend, and beer. So this is half transliteration and half translation. So 皮 sounds like beer, the starting sound of beer, but 酒 is the native material we already have for thousands of years. So we can, with 酒, we have different kinds of drinks, liquors. So like 红酒, that is wine, 白酒, that is alcohol. So it's very flexible when making new words. And camera in Chinese would translate into 照相机, just like I mentioned, 飞机, the aeroplane, flying machine. 机 means machine, so we have all kinds of machine. 洗衣机 is washing machine. 电视机 is television. 录音机 is recorder, etc. So here you can see how Chinese making new words. And game, we have 游戏. 游 is also can be used to form other vocabulary, like 游客 means tourist, and 旅游 means tourism. 桂林旅游学院, right? Very keywords, a keyword. And tennis. This is also pretty much like the English language because we have the word root 球, which means ball. So tennis is 网球, and basketball is 篮球 because 篮 means basket, and 高尔夫球 means golf, and 台球 volleyball, 足球 football. And butter, we have we translate into 黄油. So 油 means oil, 黄 means yellow because really it looks like yellow oil, and because the color is yellow. And 奶油 means cream, 橄榄油 means olive oil. And elevator, 电梯, just like the example I showed you before, the 电话means telephone, electricity plus speech, words. 电梯 elevator, T is ladder, so electric ladder. 电脑 is computer, it's electricity plus brain. It's like a brain that is powered by electricity. That's how Chinese, like the Chinese language, form new words. So let's go back to that slide. And yeah, the Chinese tends not to borrow words from other languages. It uses native elements to create words for expressing new concepts. And it's usually, the ancient Chinese is usually monosyllabic, but the modern Chinese, especially the Mandarin Chinese, most of the time bisyllabic or even like polysyllabic. And this is also a very interesting example. I found that the brass family have very different names in English, which is so hard to memorize. The trumpet, French horn, trombone, tuba. But in Chinese, it's very simple. They're all called hao, and you just use modified with different adjectives. Trumpet, because it's very small, so we call it 小号. Maybe it's the smallest. I don't know. Maybe cornet is smaller, but cornet is called 短号. Still, we have this word root. So trumpet is 小号. And this one, I think the main feature is because here, this part is it's just like a circle. So we call it 圆号. It's a full circle, it's round. So it's 圆号. And trombone, it's very long, and as you can see, so it's called 长号. That means long. 长 means long. And tuba, yeah, this is very large, right? So it's very simple. It's called 大号. So I think it will be easier to memorize Chinese words than English words to me. Oh no, not to me, maybe to most of the second language learners. And let's come to the third part, grammar. And here's some fun facts about the Chinese grammar. So the language almost entirely lacks inflection. Words typically have only one grammatical form. This is comparing with the English or the Romance language branches or the Indo-European languages on the whole. For example, in English, when I say, so I sing and he sings, we change the form of the verb. In Chinese, we use the same verb, 唱, 我唱, 他唱, it's the same. You don't change the form. In English, we say I am, he, she is, they are, but in Chinese, we are the same. It's always 是, 我是, 他是, 他们是. There's no changes at all. And in French, well, it's more complicated. the present tense of the indicative mood. So we have I am, you are, he is, we are, and they are, or the honorific you are and they are. And so je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Wow, it's so hard to memorize. So there's no conjugation in the Chinese vocabularies. It's also very easy to use, to master. And so we use 是. So in French, and this is just the present tense. And we also have the past tense, the future tense, and maybe subjunctive mood, I don't know. And so they will add to the numbers. So in Chinese, we only have one, 是, no matter who. We always use the same character. There's no change in the form. And secondly, categories such as number, or singular or plural, and verb tense are frequently not expressed by any grammatical means. The number, it tends to use numerous classifiers in counting nouns. I heard that in Malay it is the same, right? There are also classifiers, numerous classifiers. And verb tense, how to show time, because we have grammatical, the grammatical relations in Chinese language are expressed through word order and various particles. That's how we in Chinese, how we used to express the grammatical relations. The two main functions or two main methods are word order and various particles. And this, finally, in Chinese, a topic prominent language. This means the topic of the sentence defined as old or known information precedes new or added information. The old information always comes at the beginning of the sentence and then the new or added information. So here are some examples. It's very flexible, the Chinese language. You can see here there are two sentences, and except the beginning, except the first part, 冬天 means in winter, 夏天 means in summer. And then we have the same characters, but they can be understood in very differently. 冬天能穿多少穿多少, that means you dress as more as you can in winter, but 夏天 means you dress as less as you can in summer. Well, it's the same sentence, but it can be explained, interpreted into different ways and completely different ways. This is very, you should always understand the Chinese language according to the context. So there are lots of pronouns and lots of ambiguity. It might cause ambiguity. And so here's another example. So someone said, I'm still single because in the past I 喜欢一个人, now I 喜欢一个人. And can you tell the difference? They're the same. And actually, the first sentence means I'm in love with someone. Here, 一个人 means someone. But here, in the second sentence, 一个人 means alone. So in the past, I'm single because I was in love with someone, but for some reason we can't be together. And now I 喜欢一个人, that means I enjoy being alone. I prefer to be alone. So Chinese grammar is very loose and it's very flexible and has lots of ambiguity, but this is also very interesting. So this is about grammar. And finally, we have the writing system. This is very special, very different from the rest of the world's languages. And Chinese is one of the oldest languages in the world. The characters were first seen in 1250 BC. So the Chinese writing, mature Chinese characters have a history of more than 3,000 years now. And it is the only existing pictographic language in the world today. And here you can see these are the earliest Chinese characters. They're carved on bones or animal plastrons. What are they for? Actually, they were used for divination. So they were called the oracle bones. And for the ancient Chinese, they were very religious, and so they define every matters. Will it rain tomorrow? Will the baby be delivered safely? Will I win in this war? Etc. All kinds of questions can be defined, and they will like set the bone on fire and see the crack, and read the crack, and then they will write down those things, the whole matters. And now let's see this picture. What can you see? Well, clearly you can see a scenery both during the day and night. And the specific, here we have the sun, the moon, mountains, rivers, fields. But actually there are some Chinese characters hidden in this picture. That's interpreted one by one. This is the sun. So in Chinese we call it 日, and this is the symbol of 日, and this is the transformation of this character through history. And now this is a simplified and standard version of the Chinese character 日. So it means the sun, very pictographic, right? And then we have the horizon. So the sun is rising above the horizon. That is that. You can also see the history. So what does it mean? Yeah, it means dawn or in the morning. So this is the moon, and this is the how it was written in the oracle bones. This is also the transformations through history. And in Chinese we call it 月. This is a character for the moon. And how about the sun and the moon together? Well, it will never happen in reality, but both of them are maybe the brightest celestial bodies in the sky. So together they form another character, which means bright, and or light, and it is 明, 日月, 明. Now let's have a review. And this is the sun, 日, and this is the moon, 月. And together they form another Chinese character, that is 明, which means light or bright. Very vivid. Now you can do the practice to draw a line. And from the first, this is 火, right? Means fire. And this is the mountain. This is the field. And we can see those simplified Chinese characters no longer look like a picture, but still we can turn into like artistic form to help us memorize, like this one. This is an umbrella, and in Chinese, the Chinese character, it's just like this. So this is san, the umbrella. Even this is a simplified word character. And this is feng, right? The wind. And this is color or colorful. 色, 颜色 means color. We have different colors. 不同的颜色. Color. And this is 算, because you can see an abacus, that is the ancient way to calculate for the Chinese. So 算 means to count, to calculate. And this is 满, that means full. So these Chinese characters, when they are simplified and they become more abstract and they lose the pictographic feature, still we can turn it into some kind of arts to help us to remember, to make association with the word meaning. And this is the bone. Yeah. 骨. And this is 手, hand. And I don't want to mislead you to say that Chinese characters are all pictographic or so-called ideograph. Actually, most of the Chinese characters have become more and more abstract, especially after it being simplified. And like characters like this have become like radicals, like this. So this is hand of character for hand, but when it is simplified word and it just become a symbol, and it become a radical. That means still means show, and it has lots of variants. So just like this, this is the Chinese character for people, 人, and you can see this is the ancient form of 人. It shows a standing man in profile, and this is the simple form and the standard Chinese character 人 today. And it also becomes a radical form, the compound characters. So let's come to the meaning or the concepts of radicals. That's the building blocks of Chinese characters and often reflect some common semantic or phonetic characteristics. So whether it is semantic or it's phonetic. So they have two, more often than not, they have these two features. So we can look at these. This is a radical which has a semantic meaning of people, a person. And this is the radical that has a meaning of wood or tree. This is for grass, and this is for water, rivers, all kinds of waters. And this is for this is just introduced. This is derived from 手, from hand. So when there's a character which is formed by this radical, it has a meaning of action. And look at these Chinese characters. They have the same radical, and these radicals play the same role. That is to denote that they have the same pronunciation, almost the same pronunciation, because you can see the same initial and same finals. The only difference is the tones. So you can see the radicals either reflect the common semantic meanings or characteristics or phonetic characteristics. Like in these five characters, we have 请, that means please. 清, that means clear. 晴, that means sunny. 晴, that means emotion. 清, dragonfly. So now you can see Chinese characters have gone through a very long history and they transformed itself as well. And let's see other examples. This is the Chinese character 爸, that means dad. It is made of two radicals. The first radical is 父, it's on the upper part, that means father. And clearly it is the semantic radical and also the key. And how about the upper part? That is 爸, and you can see the meaning are so similar. The sound is so similar. Sorry. So, the only difference is the tone. So here it is a phonetic radical. We can see more examples. Actually, the pictophonetic characters account for the most part of modern Chinese characters. There are around 70% of Chinese characters are pictophonetic ones, which are composed of two components, one indicating meaning and the other sound. Ma, so the Chinese character ma for that is English mother, pronunciation is ma. The phonetic component is on the right side, ma. The only difference is the tone. And the semantic component is nu, because nu means shows the gender, means female, girl, woman, etc. And fang, the coming pronunciation is fang, and phonetic component is on the left side. Fang, still the only difference lies in the tone. And the right part, this somatic component has a meaning of to hit, to take action. So fang means to put. And you can see Chinese component ma. This is a phonetic component. You can form different Chinese characters with a similar sound. This is ma. This is a question tag. And 吃饭了吗? Have you eaten? Ma, mama, the ma means mother, and ma, a dragonfly. And so the Chinese plays, sometimes they take the most advantage of the Chinese characters, to use. For example, in designing, and are you familiar with this symbol, with this emblem? This is the emblem for the Beijing 28 Olympics. So I just read you the introduction from the website, the official website. So the official emblem of Beijing 2008, entitled Chinese Seal Dancing Beijing, cleverly combines the Chinese seal and the art of calligraphy with sporting features, transforming the elements into a human figure. So this is a human running toward and embracing triumph. The figure resembles the Chinese character Jing. So this is actually, it's both a running person who's embracing friends coming from all over the world, and as well, and at the same time, it's also a character. This Chinese character is Jing, and that is Beijing. That means stands for the name of the host city, Peking, right? And represents a particularly significant Chinese style. So the artwork embodies 4 messages: Chinese culture, the color of red China. Beijing welcomes friends from all over the world to challenge the extreme and achieve perfection and promote the Olympic motto of faster, higher, and stronger. And another example is the Shanghai Expo in 2010. And there's obviously on the surface, you can see there are 3 people, right, holding hands together, arms in arms, and also in making an embracing gesture. But at the same time, there is a Chinese character hidden. That is 世, means standing for 世界. That means the world. So the expo emblem features the Chinese character 世, world, and modified to represent 3 people together with the 2010 date. So you can also see 2010 here. And finally, I think most of you are familiar with this, right? Because the Winter Olympics was held in Beijing just in January, or maybe February. So this is Beijing 2020. So you can also see a Chinese character here, and that is Dong for winter. So I also read you. So the Beijing 2022 emblem combines traditional and modern elements of Chinese culture, as well as features embodying the passion and vitality of winter sports. Inspired by the Chinese character Dong, which stands for winter, which is the Chinese character for winter, the emblem resembles a skater on the top. So here is a skater on the top, and the skier at the bottom. The flowing ribbon-like motif between them symbolizes a host country's rolling mountains, Olympic venues, ski pists, and skating rinks. It also points to the fact that the games will coincide with the Chinese New Year. The use of blue in the emblem represents dreams, the future, and purity of ice and snow, while red and yellow, and the colors of China's national flag, symbolize passion, youth, and vitality. So the Chinese really make full use of the Chinese characters when in artistic works like these. And there are more examples. I think I just skipped this because it's a little hard, difficult for me to explain because maybe I guess you're all at the beginning level, right? So This is a poem. And you can see from the form, it's just like a triangle. It forms a triangle with one character, two Chinese characters, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and adding one more character each line, and actually together they make sense and they rhyme. It's all about drinking alcohol, drinking liquors, the wine or the drinking history of China, and each line except the first line actually alludes to Chinese classical texts. And in 2008, an earthquake, unprecedented earthquake hit Wenchuan County in Sichuan province, that's my hometown in China, and it was so devastating. And so here's a public interest commercial or advertisement because it happened in Wenchuan. So on the surface, you can see the county's name here, Wenchuan, but together it formed another Chinese character that is Ji, which has a meaning of to help. So together it means to help Wenchuan. And here we have these 3 characters and formed by the basic component that is mu. As I've told you, it means tree. So when there are 2 trees, it means woods. And when there are 3 trees, it means forest. So still public interest advertisement. What does it mean? It means the deforestation will just lead us to death. And I'd like to show you some videos about the Chinese radicals. Okay, this is the first one. Got it? Very interesting, right? And very helpful, maybe, to help you with your first, maybe Chinese characters memorizing mastery. And let's see another one, which is a little more complicated. So this is a radical for walk. These are like footprints. Together, they form a Chinese character, xing or hang. That means to walk or road. So it's very similar to the walk radical, but that means hit. So can you differentiate between these three radicals? So there was a straight punch. And just now in that video, the Chinese character xing is introduced. That means to walk or when it is a noun, it means a trade. And here's sadly, this documentary doesn't have any English subtitle, but maybe you can just feel it, and I will help you with my explanation. This is just Chinese documentary, very short, very well made. So this is the oracle bone side. So they carve into the stone, they carve into the tortoise shell or the ox plastron, and these signals are actually the earliest Chinese characters. So, when it first appeared, the pronunciation is hang, and it is a noun. It was a noun meaning crossing or intersection. You can see, right? The crossing, intersection. So it means road. So this is the remains of a road of the Shang dynasty which tracks to the two directions. The roads connect different cities and countries, and those goods were that's delivered to all the places all over China. Since all trades were firstly like opened besides the roads, so Jing, Hang, later adopted the meaning of trade. So bank in Chinese, we call it yin hang. Yin means silver, hang is trade. So a trade dealing with money. So as early as Shang Dynasty, that was 3,000 years ago, the Shang people have already have express delivery. They even divine about their express delivery, whether they will be made on, whether be delivered successfully or not on the oracle bones. The dynasty that surpassed Shang Dynasty is called Zhou Dynasty, and they are very strict with the road planning, or they are very particular about the roads. They are very flat and very straight during that dynasty. Straight as an arrow. So they use these roads to signify or to associate it with integrity, with people's merits. So second meaning derived from the first meaning, that is the verb means to walk on the road. Here's a picture or animation formed by these ancient characters, Chinese characters, and they are all oracle bone inscriptions. You can see here, this is the road, grasses, the sun, mountain, home. Early in the morning, the guy walked out of his home and he drove his car. It's a boat, wind, water, and his horse. Woods, right? And walls, city walls, setting sun. So you see the sounds just like the oracle bone character. So in the past, the traffic was so hard. So poets left lots of legacy for us. They have lots of poems dedicating to like traveling, to or departing as friends, maybe forever. That is the Silk Road. That's the first time that Chinese road were known to the world. So this is the Chinese character Xing or Hang and its transformation. This is the oracle bone character, and this is a bronze character, this silk, and it's a standard writing form. Yeah, I think that's all for today, and I hope all of you will be benefited from this lecture somehow. And thank you for your patience in listening. That's all. Oh, let's have a 10-minute break, please, and we'll wait for another instructor to give you a second lecture. Thank you.对，挺好的。哦，好像有的没，一开始上课他们就关了。嗯，对，就是都只能看到名字。要不先关一下声音还是？我出声了，啊，谢谢，好，谢谢，把这个水拿走。那你还在我后边辛苦，还要等一会儿。没事，我就不太会用这个，就是你直接共享，你不用管它啊，刚才已经共享了啊，你可以先琢磨一下。好的。然后点高级，要点高级的，高级应该要收费。现在就是已经是共享的样子，你不用管它。对，哦，你在试别的哈。嗯。好的，先走了。好，拜拜拜。嗯。
这个 USB 给它啊。